This broadcast is presented by authority of NBC and the International Olympic Committee and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of NBC and the International Olympic Committee.
Welcome back to Studio One in Atlanta. We're pleased to be joined now by President and Mrs. Clinton, who have had time with all their other duties to come down for about half a day to Atlanta and take in some gymnastics and some swimming tonight, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
You're both sports fans. I know that, legitimate sports fans. This isn't just an honorary activity for you.
This is a serious engagement. Matter of fact, Hillary and I are rather jealous of our daughter. You know, Chelsea's been here all week, and we've had to suffer through daily reports about how wonderful it was here. So we love the Olympics and we love sports, and we're very proud of the American team, and we're very proud of Atlanta. They've done a wonderful job, I think, of hosting the Olympics.
Which athletes have you had a chance to speak with, either by phone or in person?
We've talked to a number of the swimmers whom we saw after the relay meet, and we met the women's gymnastics team after the events today. We've also met other athletes, through the last couple of days, but we're having all of them to the White House when the games are over, so we'll get to meet every single one of the American athletes.
What did you say to Carrie Strug when you saw her?
Well, she thanked me for calling her and said she thought that they were pulling her leg.
I hope they were pulling the other one, not the one that was hurt.
That's right, exactly.
She said that her teammates were always making fun of her, and she thought it was another joke. And I think when I called her, you know, I don't think she had any idea the impact of what she did on our country, and in fact on people throughout the world who really love sports and competition. She was so humble about it, just acted like, well, it was what she had to do.
I understand you watched her exploits and the women's gymnastics team even later than most of us did.
That's right.
Aboard Air Force One, right?
I was in California when we watched your reporting of the gymnastics competition through one of the 4 events. Then I had to go to 2 different meetings. Then I came out and got on the plane. So I told them all, I said, I want you to ask one person to tape it. And I said, if you tell me or anybody else what happened, I'll just cream you. So we had the whole airplane biting our fingernails as if we were watching it live, and it must have been 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning your time when we finally saw the fabulous ending of it.
This is your second Olympics as First Lady, because I recall seeing you in Lillehammer.
That's right. I had a terrific time in Lillehammer, and am having just as great a time here in Atlanta.
Well, there you are, a late entrant in the giant slalom, I believe.
That's right, I know it. You could tell it was a little colder in Lillehammer than you could imagine it being here in Atlanta, where it's so nice and warm. But you know, the whole spirit of the Olympics is something that I've loved ever since I was a little girl. And actually to be able to go to an Olympics is for me like a lifetime dream come true. I just love to see these young people and the discipline and the hard work and the energy that they put into it. And the fans have been terrific. The fans in Norway were great. The fans here are great.
The opening ceremony, Mr. President, we were all touched by the sight of Muhammad Ali lighting the Olympic torch. And afterward, although they quickly took him away, you requested a meeting with him and did get a chance to speak with him, right?
Well, I've known him for some years now. And in fact, he came to see me in the White House just a month or so before the Olympics. And I've watched him deal with his disease with dignity and strength and good humor. And, you know, to see him carrying on and having his head held high, and to remember when he looked like a ballerina in the boxing ring, I was just profoundly moved. And I'm very grateful to the Olympic Committee for finding that way to light the torch. I think a lot of Americans felt the same way.
You know, we are of the same generation. We grew up, in a sense, with Muhammad Ali as an athletic hero and an important figure in the 60s, one of the defining figures of the 60s. We never thought we would see him, especially this young, aging, infirm, but at the same time, though it was poignant and sad, so uplifting.
Oh, yes. He's got a great heart, you know, and he's come to terms with his difficulties. And the last time I saw him in the Oval Office, I bent over and put my ear to his mouth so he could talk to me, you know. But he's still, you know, he may not be able to prance around the ring, but he's still got that heart of fire, you know, he's got it still.
Sometimes he's able to respond. What did you say to him, if you don't mind sharing that? And was he able to say anything in return?
I told him, I put my arms around him and I told him how happy I was for him and how proud I was for our country. and what an important moment I thought it was to have him up there. Sort of the ultimate reconciliation of Muhammad Ali and America, you know. And I told him I thought America was proud of him and what a good job he'd done. And he just smiled and patted me on the shoulder. He's still a lot bigger than I am, you know, so he could pat me on the shoulder.
The duties of a president and a first lady, Mrs. Clinton, are varied. And so today, there was quite an emotional graph for the two of you. It began visiting with the families of the victims of TWA Flight 800, and then here to Atlanta. It's been quite a day.
It has been. You know, we wanted to go to New York when the time was right, after, you know, the initial work had been done, and when Bill's arrival wouldn't disrupt everything that was happening. And I'm very glad we got to do that. And we spent a number of, I guess, a couple of hours, I lost track of time, talking to and listening to members of the families of the victims. And then I also spent some time just thanking a lot of the volunteers from TWA and the Red Cross and churches and other groups that had been there helping. And it was very hard. It was a really tough morning. But, you know, I saw the same kind of evidence of spirit. I mean, the love that people felt toward the family members they lost, the pride in them that they shared with us. So in an odd sort of way, getting on that plane and coming here seemed right, even though it was hard.
It seems we're moving closer to a flat declaration that this was a criminal act. It occurring so close to the start of the Olympics, did that change anything in terms of security preparations for these games?
No, it might have made us all even more acutely aware of our responsibilities. But frankly, I think that the security team here, from the federal government to the state and to the local people, they've worked hard to work together. They've dealt with a phenomenal number of complex security challenges. And, you know, everybody's just doing the very best they can. But I think even though, as we speak, we don't know what caused that plane to go down, we understand that this is a world that's not free of danger, and that we had a responsibility to try to make the Olympics as free of danger as possible. You know, the Olympics represents the antithesis of this terrorism that's going on around the world. You know, these people don't get ahead by demonizing their opponents. They don't get ahead by hurting their opponents. They don't get ahead by bad-mouthing their opponents. They get ahead by reaching down inside for their best. And I wish the world would operate more in that way.
And lastly, Mr. President, you dispatched the Deputy Transportation Secretary down to Atlanta to assist the ACOG people with some of the difficulties they've been having with mass transit. As I understand it, there's about a $230 million commitment from the federal government to these games in the area of security.
That's correct.
In Spain, they spent billions of dollars in support of the Barcelona games, infrastructure and whatnot. We've never done it that way in the United States. Is it possible, in your view, that it would be appropriate, either in 2002 in Salt Lake City or beyond, if an American city made a successful bid for 2008, for the federal government to be involved in the Olympics to a greater extent?
I think it would be possible, and I think it would be appropriate if the role were clearly defined and clearly something that could be done without interrupting the way the Olympics have operated in the past, basically being driven by a successful local leader. In this case, Billy Payne in Atlanta. I think he's done a terrific job, and Mr. Uberoth before in Los Angeles. We don't have the same system that the European countries do and a lot of the Asian countries do. And we normally raise our Olympic money privately. But when significant infrastructure expenses are needed that can't be met through private investments, I think the federal government should be willing to look at it. No one could doubt that the United States has benefited enormously from these Olympics. This is not just something that's helping Atlanta and Georgia, although to be sure they're on the cutting edge of the benefits, that the world sees us here in a good light. But our nation is deeply honored by these Olympics and greatly enhanced by it, I think, in the mind of the public throughout the world.
President Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, a pleasure to see you. Thank you for taking the time to come by.
Thank you.
We'll be back with a final thought on this night from Atlanta after this.
Tomorrow night on Prime Time, swimming's goodbye. Team America has 5 relay golds. The men swim for a relay sweep in the 4x100 medley. Also, track and field opens. Race number 1 for Michael Johnson, pursuing the unprecedented 200-400 double. Then tonight, after your late local news and a new 5-minute monologue from Jay Leno, our continuing coverage. Men's volleyball, undefeated Team USA versus Cuba.
Our time is very short here. Just a reminder, we'll have Michael Johnson right at the top of our broadcast tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time in his 400-meter heat. The U.S. women have swept all the swim relays here. This was the cast tonight in the 4x200. Trina Jackson, Christina Teuscher, Sheila Tarmina, and Jenny Thompson, who now has 5 career gold medals. Only Winter Olympian Bonnie Blair has as many among American women. As we go to their medal ceremony, we say good night for now from Atlanta. So long.